We're live.
Yeah, we are. It's me with a piece of paper.
Right. Hi. Piece of paper. And Mr. Hand. Remember Mr.
Oh
Hand?
goodness! You should put glue some googly eyes on your hand.
You don't remember Mr. Hand
Yeah, I do. I just think
from
it would be
Mr.
funny.
Bill?
Yeah, I just think it would be funny.
Oh no. All right. So instead of sketching on a regular piece of copy paper, I wanted to have a bigger one so I could possibly even do larger. I like this, but the lead's huge, so I wanted to
What's
kind
the
of show the
bullet?
difference. This is the actual lead,
Yeah, that's freaking giant.
and this is that lead.
That is
And the
huge.
lead that I normally sketch with loosely is this lead, so
Huh.
pretty big difference. But this actually also can hold charcoal,
Oh yeah.
which I'm interested in playing around with, or interested in playing around with.
Have you ever
This is
played
just
around with
sharpening.
charcoal?
Uh, I think a couple of times, but
It's
I
dusty.
didn't. I didn't really understand that you could kind of erase it and stuff like that.
Yeah, but it's dusty.
So and this is years and years ago. I mean, I don't even want to say how long ago it was, but it was long enough ago where I was like, yeah, it's kind of not my thing right now. I did that same thing with oil painting at first. So the book that I was talking about, that I was reading, that I thought you would like,
Yeah.
is called Murder in Maastricht.
Okay.
And Maastricht has a college, it's still a college in the Netherlands.
Okay.
Maastricht University.
You're giving me too many books. I'm going to be buried. Oh.
Fast as you read,
Yeah, but I can only read in small bits. That's the thing. You don't ever get. Like, you don't understand. I read quick because I can't sit still.
no, it's not that I don't understand it. It's just you didn't say that. So
Well, yeah, it's
you
very
can
hard.
understand it when you communicate it.
It is like I can probably count on one hand the number of books that have really gotten me to sit still. Like Ender's Game was actually one of the books that, I mean, I got it. A friend gave it to me in class one day in high school, and I was done with it before the next day. And I never, I mean, I was just so enthralled. I just read the whole thing that night, and that's rare, very rare for me. Even books that I
Yeah,
just,
I've only read I've only read a couple of books in one shot like that.
I saw a thing a couple of years ago that advises that The Great Gatsby can be read in a day, and I'm like, yeah, it could. I've never done that, but because I read it at least once a year because I'm teaching it. But it's kind of funny. The guy that's teaching right next to me, um, he's a little older than I am, and I mean, he's new to the school, but he's been teaching a little bit longer than I have too. But he's like, I've never really gotten into Gatsby. And I was like, what? And he's like, oh yeah, he just does. He doesn't understand it. Like, well, he doesn't understand the fascination with it. And I was telling him, I was like, chapter 3, there's a moment where Fitzgerald changes tense in the middle of a description, just goes from past tense, like the rest of the story, and he's describing Gatsby's party, which is the third party of the book, and it becomes present tense. And then it switches back when he's done describing the party. I'm like, he is literally making that party everlasting. It is constant. It is going on now. It was going on then. It's going on in the future. It will always be present. I was like, seeing that kind of mastery of tense and doing it that subtly. Like a lot of people don't even recognize the tense change. And I'm just like, this is
See, I probably would because I don't read fast, but I read everything. You know what I mean?
right. But,
So I would pick it up, and it probably would disturb me.
well, see, once you
I
realize
mean to
there's a
be
reason,
honest, you know.
well, there's a bigger problem in chapter 2 because it talks about how the iris is, no, it talk, the has the eyes of T.J. Eckleberg have blue retinas. And that's physically impossible. Not only that, you'd never see them on a sign because they're in the back of the eye, not the front of the eye, and just like, yeah, this is messed up. This is just wrong. It's one of those things that it's like a beauty blemish. It's like by having that one mistake, it makes everything else better. I don't think it was intentional, but I'd like to think it was.
But you really like the book, so I mean,
Yes.
that's. I find I do that, so I guess I can. I feel like I can get away with talking about it, but I find that if we like a book,
Yeah.
we forgive a lot more than if we either don't know or haven't gotten hooked right off.
Probably. Well, that's
And I'm
like
not
with
speaking for good or bad. I'm just speaking that, like, if you start reading, I just noticed it. Like, it might be wrong. It might be completely wrong, but
the. Have you ever read The Yellow Wallpaper?
I do not believe so.
Well, okay, so it's a short story, and it's about this woman who gets prescribed bed rest for nerves, and she starts seeing things in the wallpaper. And it's a feminist book, but to be fair, at the time it was written, you know, they haven't had the feminist revolution yet, so it kind of
We
makes
have the
sense.
what?
Well, it had not had the feminist revolution, hadn't really occurred. So
Feminist revolution.
yeah, women's equality and things like that just, hadn't happened yet.
Didn't
So,
they call that sufferance? Is that what it was?
well, suffrage would be earning the right to vote. So I believe it was written after the right to vote. But, you still had this is pre-World War II. And you're still having, women had their role in the house and, they didn't go out and work and all this stuff. And, this is still, it's written at a time, where they think women are hysterical and, they have to have bed rest and all kinds of stuff. And she's not allowed to do anything because she's so frail.
And bed rest.
Yeah. But anyway, the first time I read it, which was in high school, and it's not a book, it's a short story, but in case I said it was a book, but it just pissed me off because, in this time and age, some of that stuff is just ridiculously stupid. And it's written by the same woman, Charlotte Perkins Gilman. She wrote Herland, which is an absolute, if you want to find hate literature, that's what it is. She hates men. Just, it's clear as day. But, so I never liked this short story, The Yellow Wallpaper. And of course, a lot of English teachers end up being female. It's a female-dominated field. I get it. And, so all my colleagues were like, oh, I love this story, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I hate this story. It's just anti-male, and I just don't like it. It's just a feminist diatribe, and it's not for me. And then finally someone goes, oh, I never thought of it as being feminist. I just always thought of it as a horror story. And I got to thinking about it, and I was like, it is a horror story. And if someone had presented it to me that way first, I might have been able to enjoy it. But because
right?
it definitely has horror elements to it if you have that lens on. And it's kind of like what you're saying, because it pissed me off. I couldn't see some of the good stuff about it.
Yeah, right. And I totally like I fall victim to that too. Like for instance, Guy Gabriel K.
Okay.
Well, um, remember I'm drawing, so
Yeah, I know. You just every once in a while, I'm like, wait, am I supposed to respond to something? Did I miss something?
well,
So then I get worried.
no, Guy Gabriel K. I think it's Tigana, maybe.
Okay. I know.
I'm not really sure right now, so I kind of wanna. I don't know. Either that or the lion of something else. I'd have to look it up to make sure, but they he switches from first person to third person,
Oh,
and when he does, it's um, it's without warning. He switches from one character to another, and when he switches to the other character, it's just in the first person voice, and it made me really kind of put it down. Now, when I read, say, Mark, hmm, terrible this right now. For some reason, I keep losing names, and I know those names. You know what I mean?
right.
It's guess I'll look up the book. That'd be easiest.
Yeah, that's true.
Mark Lawrence.
Okay.
He did Prince of Thorns and uh, the Red Plains War. And Prince of Thorns is a trilogy. Prince of Thorns, King of Thorns, and Emperor of Thorns.
Okay.
And um, he kind of switches tense as he's telling the story. Not like not not as he switches characters because it's told in first person,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes it's told in first person, and sometimes it's told. Sometimes it's told in first person past, and then he'll redirect to first person present uh, to make a statement about something, and it works for me. Like where it didn't work with uh, whatever Guy Gabriel K book that I was reading,
Okay.
because it's in character in voice, and he doesn't switch the character, and it's all filled with attitude, and the attitude sells it for me. So, whereas I don't like it with one, with the other, it's fine. But it's because I like the voice, and I like it hooked me right from the start, and it hooked me with the voice right from the start. And because of that, I'm okay with it. Now the other didn't, and I was kind of struggling. And he really kind of, I don't want to be insulting to him because he is a very popular writer, so there's a lot of people that are gonna like him. But he he is a derivative. He's like, it's a Tolkien-esque.
Okay.
Even though it kind of fades from Tolkien to more historical,
Mm-hmm.
which I guess would be a Robert E. Howard-esque, because that's basically his fantasy was twisted towards the historical.
Oh.
And everything goes quiet. So I wanted to mention the book I'm reading because I'm pretty much doing a review as I go. It's still interesting. It's still hasn't gotten to the murder yet,
That's so funny.
but
Well,
he's got
it's
a great voice, and he's like, a lot of times he's complaining about something you never actually see.
yeah.
Like he's complaining about um, the chef's cooking or whatever, the cooks cooking at the university
Mm-hmm.
being so bad that anything tastes better. Like he can really put up with almost anything after eating that cook's stuff.
Okay.
And it's kind of a running joke with him, as well as fixing or talking basically to the audience about the guy that's actually scribing it down for him while the guy is scribing it down for him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is kind of ironic, right?
A little bit. Have you ever read The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo?
I have not, but I have watched the foreign version of the movie before they did the.
A friend of mine was reading it and just thought it was like the greatest thing ever. I'm like, all right. So I picked it up.
The
And,
story is pretty good, but it's it's a.
well, it's just literally like I have a rule about 100 pages. If nothing of interest has happened in 100 pages, I'm done. In this book, hey, Mark, this book decided to be incredibly boring for 99 pages. And then, literally, on the 100th page, finally something happened. And I was like, really?
Hey, Mark. Yeah.
So
I had that problem with Stephen King, actually. He did that with Bag of Bones.
oh god, that was a slow one.
Oh, yeah. Like the first 100 pages is an author who got hit by a vehicle, wondering if he'll ever be able to write again.
Yeah. Wait, is Bag of Bones the one that I?
It was over 100 pages, and he had done nothing but whine about whether he could write again and talk about how he had manuscripts in the drawer that he had. It was a good thing that he had already had X amount of manuscripts already in the drawer, type of thing.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. I think Bag of Bones may have been one of the few Stephen King books that I started and then said, nah. And yeah, because I thought it was basically a romance novel.
I didn't even get that far because, like, everything that I had read.
Well, I thought it was
just complaining about not being able to write.
Yeah. I think I got far enough to realize it was a romance novel and said, not for me. Mark says that he finds Stephen King's work to be somewhat vacuous, and I get the feeling he hates people. That's just his. It's because he's from Maine, and people from Maine are terrible. Right, Rich?
Well, I'm not from Maine, by the way.
Oh, so then you know. You have braved the Maine territory.
I don't agree that necessarily. I think Stephen King is just Stephen King, and since he's gotten successful and then basically become the #1 name in horror, and then basically he got the same movie produced 10 times, and he can do that forever and into infinity.
Yeah.
Then he can tell you how to spend your money and how you're, whatever. It's kind of dumb when it comes to most Mainers. He's got great characterization, but if he actually paid attention to most Mainers, he'd know that they want to hunt, they want to use guns, that you don't buy an AR-15 so that you can send rounds down range as fast as humanly possible, because it's not a fucking machine gun.
I know.
It's a one shot, one pull the trigger gun. Just like a revolver, except for it holds more. And there's actually a website dedicated to how Stephen King is an idiot about guns. Like, every book that he's mentioned something about guns that he does something wrong with, it's actually literally listed out on that site page, and book, page, chapter, all that. Like, he has a guy that throws a revolver on the ground.
Yeah.
And it goes off. Like, first of all, you have to actually draw the firing pin back on a revolver, or you have to put well over 10 pounds of pressure on that trigger to make it go off.
Right.
Now, in the Old West, it was different. That's why they'd leave an empty chamber, because writing, they had the hammer loose enough that it could, bounce and snap into that chamber enough to set off the firing pin. But ever since the 1920s, that hasn't happened. It's just crap, really. But yeah, he doesn't know his way around guns, and it shows. But he preaches against them, which makes you think he knows his way around guns. But any Mainer worth his salt probably is a hunter, if they're a real Mainer. The problem is that Maine originally wasn't Maine; it was Bay of New Massachusetts. So it was the Bay of Massachusetts went from Massachusetts around either Vermont or New Hampshire. I think it's Vermont. No, it must be New Hampshire. And then Maine was the Bay of Massachusetts continued. And they separated because they weren't in the same, they didn't want to be northern Massachusetts. But now, all the northern Massachusetts people are moving into Maine and buying shit and trying to change it to their goals.
The very place they're leaving because they don't like it there?
Yep, all the time.
I
So,
know. I don't understand the disconnect in logic. If you don't like a place, so you leave it, and you go someplace that you think is better off for you, why do you want to change it to be like the place you left?
right, why do you want to destroy it? Well, the reason that most of them want to destroy it is because they don't believe we should have our own separate rights.
Well,
But
yeah. Oh,
too
yeah.
bad. But yeah, like that's not the main state of mind. The leftist state of mind that you see so uh, prof, pro, propagated in Massachusetts and not even in New Hampshire. Like New Hampshire, they've elected Democratic officials, but they still want the same rights. You know, it's such a weird state of being. But I think they want to defend like women's rights and defend help for the needy and I guess fund it or whatever, but they're caught between what they want for themselves and what they want for others.
Yeah.
And you kind of see it all over the place up here because it's that whole I'm going hunting attitude, but I want to have guns and all that, and they're not even close to talking about giving up their guns. It's all only the politicians, and it seems like the certain group of politicians they all have the same agenda,
Yeah.
but that's not the agenda of the people here. It's not what I have noticed, what I have witnessed, at least on the everyday.
Yeah.
I wouldn't talk bad about the people in Maine because most of the people that I've known in Maine would pretty much give up their shirt to help anyone. Even people that you don't like. I know my mother-in-law, even if she didn't like you,
Yeah.
she wouldn't see you go hungry. She would feed you at her own table. And she was not afraid to tell you if she didn't like you, you know?
Right.
So I don't think, there's one way in one single state. Like now that you bring up states, you've broached the subject for me. Arizona. What did the governor of Arizona do? Did you see that?
I thought it was New Mexico.
Yeah, New Mexico. Sorry, you're right. I'm wrong. Governor of Arizona, New Mexico.
Mexico.
They're
Yeah.
right next to each other, so that's just my stupidity.
Right. Oh yeah, that thing where she just emergency state of emergency, so you don't need your weapons. Like that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of.
Well, what she actually said was that the Constitution wasn't inviolate because she could, in a state of emergency, do whatever she wanted, basically.
I
But
mean,
she said she didn't have to uphold the Constitution. Well,
yeah, you
according
kind of
to what
do.
she just got sworn in is, she absolutely does have to uphold the Constitution.
Well,
The
that's why I think
Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of New Mexico.
it would be more constitutional for a whole bunch of New Mexicans to take their guns and march on the Capitol and protest peacefully, but with armed weapons. It
Yes,
would still
because
be
with the armed
constitutional.
weapons, they're going to call it fucking. Uh,
An insurrection.
yes, thank you.
Well, that's fine, but it's again at the same time, I'd say no. You draw yours first, but we'll draw ours, last, and be the end of it. there are way more people with guns than there are in the armed services, police, anything like that. So, no, I would just go in and politely remind her, no, your office is bound by the Constitution of the state and of the country, and we get to have our guns, and the Supreme Court's already ruled against you. I mean, it hasn't been an actual case yet, but they've already ruled pretty clearly that this is unconstitutional. And
Actually, they have ruled. It was 1807. That any law that when I can't remember the exact wording, is one particular word that spurns the Constitution is automatically null
oh,
and
I know.
void.
Oh, I know.
So
But I'm saying
if they ruled that that's automatically null and void, then
there have
she's null
been
and void. But she violated her oath of office to do it.
well, that's why she should be impeached. But the the current Supreme Court has already had several rulings that have reaffirmed your right to have guns, the right to carry guns. They've really taken a better line on shall not be infringed than liberals like.
You mean
And
they actually support shall not be infringed?
right, they have
support our rights.
Yeah, they have really supported that. And sometimes I just think you need to show the government that they work for us, not the other way around. And again, I think you should be peaceful until the government's not.
Yeah, peaceful but prepared. But it also states in the Declaration of Independence that it's our duty to not allow that to happen.
Right, which is why if you do it peacefully and with enough show,
No, they're not talking about peacefully. If you read the wording of the Declaration of Independence, they
I've read it. I know.
Right to overthrow.
But again, the ideal would be to just check the government, make sure they understand the process, and then not have to overthrow it.
Well, I kind of agree with Tim Pool with this. Is that the biggest problem is that not that we should take up arms or whatever. The biggest problem is that the Republicans and conservatives are not going to do anything. They're going to just let this slide over and over and over again. So that is the real problem with it, that nothing is getting done except for people are going, oh, that ain't right. So, what's the point of peacefully protesting, because peaceful protests don't do shit, and your elected officials or the other parties or whatever you want to say, nobody's going to support you.
Well, again, that's why I think you should go in. I mean, oh God, what was that cattle ranch standoff a few years ago? They showed up in force with guns and the government backed down. And that's kind of what I think has to happen with New Mexico. You got to show up and, prepared for violence. But again, you say, no, you've done something. The government has obviously done something wrong because this is unconstitutional. And we're here to make sure you don't think we're going to oblige you in any way, shape, or form. And if you'd like to enforce your law, try it now. Because once you do, then that we know it's unconstitutional and we have our rights, and we'll pay for them in blood if we need to. But again, I don't think you should start off shooting, but I think you have to be prepared to. And we've seen that in several different places. And you don't want it to be where they can go after one family like Ruby Ridge, which was ridiculous.
Yeah, which they were wrong after the fact, right? Yeah. That's what I'm saying, because nobody stood up for them.
That's why you have to go en masse, but you also have to be prepared en masse to do, and you've got to be real clear. Nobody does anything violent until they try to enforce a law that's unconstitutional.
And see, here's the problem. If you go there en masse, you're not going to be able to control it, because when it starts in mass as a peaceful protest,
Oh, I know. The FBI will have already infiltrated.
it becomes a mob.
Well, they'll
and
have.
That will not end up in peaceful protests, and
Well, that's
so
because
I'm not supporting. I'm not supporting an actual insurrection, even though I'm pointing out that the Declaration of Independence calls for it.
Well, I wouldn't say it's an insurrection, though. I would say no. If you are overthrowing the Constitution, that's an insurrection. And
yeah,
therefore,
but that's not what insurrection is defined as. Insurrection is defined as trying to overthrow the government.
And what's the government founded on? The Constitution. So if you overthrow the Constitution, you've overthrown the government. Therefore, it's an insurrection.
Yeah. So I agree with what you're saying, but it's a matter of whether it's right or whether it's correct.
Well, again,
see what I mean? Like, it's right. I agree with you in theory, in principle, and whatever, but it's incorrect in that they are going to call it an insurrection and pull out the armed forces.
Well, I get that, except for they tried to call January 6th an insurrection, and it clearly wasn't. And
but they're still calling it one, and they're prosecuting people.
You don't let them call it that. I mean, again, if I hear people say that it's an insurrection, like it was not an insurrection, there's no proof of that. You're libeling all kinds of people. It's not an insurrection.
Oh, I agree.
Riot
but
at
the
most.
thing is that it doesn't matter whether I agree or whether you agree. It matters whether the forces that be and the majority of the people agree. And they've got the majority of the people, well, either majority of the people snowed, or the majority of the people really don't just don't care.
Well, I'd argue that I think you're falling more for their trap than you should, because you're letting them define terms.
Don't know about any trap, but
because you're letting them define terms. That's the first step in setting you up to make sure that you don't do anything.
I'm not letting them do anything. I'm saying that that's what they're doing. I'm not saying I agree with them or that they're right. I'm saying that that's what they're doing, and they're the ones in control. So we got very little choice in the matter. Yeah, we should have choice in the matter, but we don't have choice in the matter because they still do what they do regardless. Yes, we know that it's not only wrong, it's basically illegal. But does that stop them? It doesn't, So I guess what I'm saying is, I'm not saying don't fight it. I'm saying, like, I don't think that a peaceful march is going to do shit.
And that's why I think you should come armed. And I don't think,
but if you come armed, they're going to consider it an insurrection because you're armed.
In California, there was once a protest where a bunch of black people got their guns and they marched through the state capitol. And you know what the courts decided? That was completely legal.
Because they're black people.
It's because it was the Second Amendment, even in California.
Okay, so, all right. What president's administration did this take place in?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, she has it for 30 days, and my feeling is that it's not illegal to own a firearm for 30 days. It's illegal to have it out in public. And so what they're going to basically, I suppose the prudent method would be,
well, they said concealed or
I get it.
Open. But
you're still allowed to own them.
That makes I don't care. Like, I'm not saying it's not. What I'm saying is that that makes cops and any other law-abiding citizens that are carrying openly illegal.
Well, no, because there's an exception carved for the
it's an
government.
illegal law, and it should be just because it's an illegal law, just stopped. She should be more than censured and impeached because impeachment doesn't guarantee removal.
Well, that's true.
And not only did she violate her oath, she's violating people's Second Amendment. In that case, she's doing a criminal act. But, she's not going to be held accountable for that criminal act.
Well, again, I think that's a matter of you've already surrendered then. If you're saying, well, there's nothing we can do and they will never be held accountable, then you are saying, we've lost, we've surrendered. That's what you're saying.
Show me an example of a successful march armed on anyone since Biden's been in office that isn't BLM or Antifa.
And so you're saying in a less than 4-year period.
And I'm not saying that I agree with it at all, but
you're saying in a less than a 4-year period, I have to come up with a march that was successful. And again, there aren't that many marches.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. In current times, it's not going to matter.
I'm saying that if it's not going to matter, then you've already surrendered.
I don't want it to not matter. Fuck, I have.
But you've surrendered.
Otherwise, I wouldn't be talking.
Wow, you've surrendered, man.
I wouldn't be saying I'm against this if I'd surrendered.
Yeah, you're saying it's terrible, but we give up.
Physically going to march over to New Mexico.
Well, I don't think we should be more. I mean, again, this isn't happening. If it happened in Maine or in Indiana,
no, but it's
something slightly different. But this is happening in New Mexico, so I'm not a citizen of New Mexico.
It sets a precedence, and you are a citizen of the United States, and you are.
There's already precedent that says this is unconstitutional.
And
it's up for New Mexicans to go in there because it's the New Mexican governor and say, "Yo, this is wrong." That's all there is to it.
Okay.
And to act like, well, nothing's going to work, well, then you've given up by saying, well,
do you believe that that's going to work? That it's going to change anything?
I think if you get enough, there have been plenty of instances where it's shown that it has. But no, they haven't happened in the last 3 years under Biden. But again,
no, I don't think it's
3 years. It's a relatively short time period.
I think they will pull out the federal forces or whatever they can to make it not a possibility. So I mean, it's not a possibility, but it's going to have repercussions that are not good. Only because I don't think we have enough power. It's not an equal power. It's not a.
Yeah, you've given up. Got it. And I'm saying it's still a fight. I still think that, yes, it normally takes longer, but in the long run, I think that they're going to lose. And I think that they're absolutely, you already know the Constitution backs you up. Yeah, there may be some immediate penalties, but again, you go through and say, no, this is completely. I mean, I think the Supreme Court will have your back on this. I think Biden's not going to be president in 2025.
There are people that are arrested and convicted of insurrection that weren't even there for the event. They just showed up soon after it and got arrested.
And I think
got convicted.
That's what they got convicted in D.C., which is why I say.
So, what does it matter whether it's D.C. or
because the Supreme Court, while being a part of D.C., has not been ruling in their favor. So you have an incredibly biased jury pool and judge, and you're saying, well, they convicted.
And you think that's different in
New Mexico Supreme Court's going to be the same way, and then that the U.S. Supreme Court's going to be the same way as a corrupt D.C. judge. And
I don't think the Supreme Court is, but I think that New Mexico is. They've already shown that.
Well, and again, it will have to work its way up through to the Supreme Court. But at that point, you win. End game is ours. Well, if you want to say that there's going to be, they're not going to make life unbearable for a little while, sure. But after a while, no, things will be reversed.
I'd really love to agree with you. I'd really love to say that I think that that's what's going to happen, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Well, that means you think that.
And I see it all the time because there's plenty of situations where people should stand up. Yeah, but no one's going to be the first one to stand up. No one wants to be that first one to stand up. And as long as nobody wants to be that, that's never going to happen. Somebody's got to do it. Otherwise it's never going to happen. It's not a giving up. It's a realistic thing.
That's just like the guy that was arrested.
Love to say, yeah,
there was a guy arrested for protesting abortion. Somebody came up and got into his son's face, and he pushed him off. And the Biden administration went after him, and went to court, and the guy won. I mean, it's just one of those things where it was so obviously wrong. It was a stupid prosecution. It wasn't going to work. And this emergency order is so obviously wrong that anyone who wants to challenge it, I think, has plenty of grounds. Yes, it's going to hurt in the short term because they have the power short term, but long term.
So that's what I'm saying. You're not giving up because you're stating that fact, right?
Yeah, but you're saying we shouldn't even fight because in the short term we're going to lose.
That's not what I'm saying.
Okay, but you just said everything that you try will be ineffective.
I don't see it resulting in what you think it's going to result in.
So you think we've already lost?
I'm not saying no. You're putting words into my mouth.
Okay, so everything that we do is going to be completely ineffective. There's nothing we can do. They're going to win. How does that not mean that we've lost?
That's not what I said. That's what
you're right. Those aren't the words that you said, but you said everything that we can try.
So those aren't the words that I said, but that's what I meant because you defined it that way.
Okay, then explain to me how I'm wrong. How do we win?
Oh, so that's not the same question.
I'm okay because
that's not the same question. You're not asking fair.
What would be the same question? Go ahead.
The same question. What is the question?
That's yours.
No.
What's the question?
That's what I'm saying.
You just told me I couldn't ask the question. You said I'm not asking the same question.
Rewind it.
I kind of thought I was.
You're not asking
you tell me what the question.
When you
I will steal man your argument.
Bro, when you say what is the thing that will make us win, that is not what I was discussing. I wasn't discussing how to win because that presumes that I know how to win. And don't you think if I actually knew how to win, I would tell somebody?
Yeah, but you're real clear on what will not work. So eliminate all the things that will not work and then say what will. You're saying we can't protest. You can't protest. You can't go to court.
You're doing that thing where if you don't like what I'm saying, you're putting it into a box that you can argue against.
No, I'm pointing out the fact that you are only saying things that will not work. You won't say what will work, and yet you say for some reason that you know why things are going to not work.
I say a whole bunch of times that I would hope it would work.
But you don't think it will, and I'm saying that means you are defeated because you think nothing will work.
So if you lose one skirmish, your whole battle is lost?
No, and that's what I'm trying to impress upon you.
No,
you will lose in the short term.
You're telling me that if I don't agree with you, then I'm automatically saying that it's all hope is lost and we should give up.
No, I'm saying tell me what you think might work. If you can tell me what you think might work, then I'll say okay, sure.
What I thought would work, I would tell you what I thought would work.
So you think nothing will work?
I don't think right now there's an acceptable solution.
So you're saying that nothing will work.
That doesn't mean that there won't be. That means that there isn't one right at the moment.
Okay, sure. Nothing that we can do right now will work. Someday there might be something, but that doesn't mean I'm defeated. It means that I'm just waiting for something to come along.
So fucking D-Day didn't happen the minute we entered the war. As a matter of fact, they had them set up and stand down like 17 times. Does that mean we lost every 17 times? I'm saying nobody has come up with a viable plan.
And I'm saying that you have to go through these steps.
Yeah,
It
Mark,
is a viable plan.
I guess. I don't know. I'm not saying that I'm giving up on anything. I'm saying that I am not going to make a difference right now with what's going on in New Mexico. Neither are you. And I don't think marching on whatever in New Mexico is going to make a difference either right now in New Mexico. It might. I would hope it would. But I don't think it will. That's just reasoning. It's not saying there's never going to be something that works. It's saying that this particular thing, I don't think is going to make much of a difference. I would love for it to make much of a difference. I just don't think it will. And I'm not saying that I quit because it's not going to be. Holy crap! That's a whole different thing. I don't have the answers. I wish I did have the answers. But it's like Cassandra. If I did have the answers, no one would fucking listen to me anyway.
Well, I guess my personal view on this would be: you don't concede. You don't say that. I mean, again, when they get into things like, "Oh, January 6th was an insurrection," no, it's not. If I hear it, it's like, no, it wasn't. It wasn't.
I don't think it's an insurrection, and I say that it wasn't all the time. It doesn't matter what I say because they're still prosecuting people.
And I am telling you that it absolutely does matter. It absolutely matters.
How does it affect what's going on?
Why do you think they keep calling it insurrection if it doesn't matter what they call it?
Oh, I know that it matters what they call it. And I disagree with what they call it, but that doesn't change what they're going to call it.
And I'm saying. And I'm saying that we should not say that, well, just because they'll call it one thing,
make it something right. I said that it's not going to change what they're calling it because I don't agree with that. I didn't say that it was going to be what it was going to be, an insurrection, just because they called it one. I think that that's horseshit. But I don't think me saying it's not an insurrection does anything except for get my channel tagged or some shit like that, because that's all it does. Like, I don't have my words, nobody's going to hear them. Nobody that's going to make a difference is going to hear them.
And as long as everyone feels the same way, they've won.
What's that?
And as long as everyone feels the same way as you, they've won. It absolutely matters that you have to speak truth to this. You have to go through and say, no, it wasn't an insurrection. You have to say this is unconstitutional.
And I do, but it doesn't matter. That's what I'm saying.
And
I'm not saying I don't. I'm not saying I don't agree with you. I'm saying that it's not going to be part of the cause and effect.
Well, and I'm saying it absolutely is.
I'd love for it to be, but I don't think it's gonna.
Well, it absolutely is.
I'm just talking realism. I'm not telling anyone don't do anything or do anything. I'm saying I don't agree with what they're doing. But me saying it, I don't think me saying it's going to matter. That's all. I'd love to see that work, but I don't think it's going to work. So what do you say? What do I say? Do I lie because I want to be hopeful? Or do I say the truth? Or what are the truth that I see? Does that mean I'm giving up because I'm speaking the truth? Or what I perceive as the truth? I don't think that the fight's over. I don't think it should be over. I just don't think that there's going to be a big, huge fight. For instance, what's her name? Carrie, the one that should have been the governor.
Carrie Lakes, who's still fighting in court.
Carrie Lake. What's that?
The Carrie Lakes, who's still fighting in court.
Right. She's still fighting in court. And she proved that the system was corrupt. She filmed it and proved that the system was corrupt. And still, what they do? They instill the governor, who we're talking about right now. Did the people rise up? Did they march on it? Did they protest? Because all that I've seen is back and forth on Twitterverse or Xverse or whatever now. Thank you, Mark. That's basically what I'm saying. And I'm not saying that nothing will work. I'm just saying I don't have the answer to what will work. I wish I did. And like I said, if I did, it'd probably be the same case as Cassandra in the Iliad, for those that don't know and they're watching. Probably nobody's going to watch after 5 minutes of politics. Although maybe, because it got heated for a second. Like I don't think it's quitting. I just think that my efforts personally could be better spent. I don't know necessarily what on, but I feel like beating your head against the wall because you don't want that wall there and you know that it's wrong. Isn't going to make it. Right. That's true too. That's different subject, but yeah, I mean, the consolation I have there is that it's not my sin. Like, I don't approve, but it's not my job to tell. I'm not going to save anybody else by their beliefs or whatever. So, but yeah, protests don't change it. I mean, change it a little bit, but then the next person that gets in will just change it back. What is the solution that's going to be a more permanent solution? I'd love to see that. I'd love to know.
Why do Trump's approval numbers keep going up every time he's indicted? See you, Mark.
Why isn't anybody marching on Washington for him being obviously a political assassination or political farce?
Again,
it's obviously a farce. But why isn't anybody marching on Washington to free Trump?
Well, because he doesn't need to be free. He is out and he doesn't have to worry about that. And again, why do his poll numbers
he's being
go up?
persecuted. Everybody knows he's being persecuted.
And why do his poll numbers keep going up?
Well, I would say that that's argument because I've seen examples of his poll numbers going down. But I would say keep going up because there's nobody else. It's tough.
And
like I said, like it's not a matter of whether I agree or I capitulate because I agree or whatever. It's not at all. It's just I don't see doing something futile as working for it. Do I think? Do I think that? I don't know. I don't know. I don't think that Trump should be prosecuted for political reasons. And they have nonstop been on him since before he was in office. But nobody has put a stop to it. It's been almost a decade now. Nobody's risen up. Nobody's gonna rise up. I heard a whole bunch of people saying that if Trump was indicted, there would be this whole, everybody would rise up. There'd be new revolution and all this other shit, which is basically what it was. Shit. Wasn't true, not in the least. Nobody rose up. Didn't make a difference. Everybody's still bitching and bitching about the same things. There are things that I agree to bitch about. It's the same things that I bitch about. A lot of them are the same things I bitch about. But all those people that swore this and that was going to happen, it's not happening. That's why I don't know the answer, because everything that you think is going to provoke people into actually making their voices heard. And the thing is that they try to make their voices heard, but it doesn't do anything. Marching on Washington, what did they do? Get a whole bunch of people arrested, and even people that didn't do anything were arrested. And a lot of people were just fine with it because they didn't want to see the person that's persecuted for it not be persecuted. It's fine because that it's their side's winning or whatever. To me, that's kind of gross all the way around. It's not about political sides. It's about us living our lives. And they make it difficult, more and more difficult all the time just to do that. And poll numbers can't be believed or trusted. I've seen poll numbers go very differently than what actually happens. But more than that, who's being polled? Where are they polling those people and those numbers? Those are all things that make a difference,
I suppose, but again, historically, they've always downplayed Trump's popularity, and
Agreed.
when
You got no argument from me here,
And so when you have poll numbers go up, so that people are, again, assuming they don't steal, assuming they do a constitutionally compliant election, which was not the last one, because it was not constitutionally compliant. I think Biden will be out, and I think people will be, again.
So the last I've seen, and it was from an independent poll, one that took into account both sides, both political sides.
Mm-hmm.
They're running neck and neck.
Yeah, I don't ever think that's true. Because
but
here's why I don't think it's true, and even it's okay. The independent pollster can be completely ethical and honest. I'm not trying to say they're trying to do anything evil or malicious, but which one, for some stupid reason, are you much more allowed to say you're in favor of, Biden or Trump?
Mm-hmm.
Because nobody's firing Trump, or nobody's firing Biden supporters. Nobody's canceling Biden supporters, but they'll cancel Trump supporters, which all that does is people keep them, their lips tight, and they're less willing to speak up.
Well, I agree,
But
and that's why I was saying that the poll numbers can't be trusted, because you have to really factor in the group of people that you're talking to.
I get
Hey,
that, but I'm
see you,
saying
Mark.
that the idea
Thanks
that
for
they're neck
stopping
and
in.
neck, I think is that's a fantasy. Just like when they say, Biden, who couldn't get 10 people to attend a rally, somehow managed to score more votes than Barack Obama, which had people swooning at. Like, there's no way. And then, of course, you start looking at, the things that Carrie Lakes has been pointing out. The fact that Wisconsin, I think was it Wisconsin or Michigan recently? They found a big operation and the FBI just was like, no, we don't want to look at this. It was
Right?
for, it's just
No
there are.
argument. That's exactly what I was talking about when I was saying futiles, because you can't. What are you going to do? I mean, ultimately, I don't wanna go deeply into it again, but like, you can't bring it to the authorities. The authorities ain't going to do shit, even if you prove it. Even during Trump's administration, the fucking authorities were still working against what he was doing. I don't think it's right, but that's what it was that they were doing, right? So I don't. It sounds more bleak. I guess you're thinking it sounds more bleak than I'm intending it to sound. I'm just saying that we have to find a better way. We have to find a way that works, because the ways that we've been finding haven't been working. So we don't use the left's tactics. We don't use it against them.
Well,
Even
again,
though,
I
you
think
know,
that this is clearly unconstitutional. I think she even admitted it was unconstitutional. And
yeah, and basically said that she didn't have to obey the Constitution strictly. What the hell is
right,
that
which
quote?
is
I
why
have to
I
look it
think
up.
you have a lot in the short term, you are going to get raked over the coals. But long term, anyone that wants to fight this has a good legal fight. And again, I think showing up en masse and saying, well, if this is such a threat, why is no one dying until you get involved? I think you're the threat. Um, I just
What?
think that protesting is appropriate here, and I think it would be useful. I think that there have been other protests that have been successful, and the problem with the right is that we tend to.
I would love for that to be true. I really would. That's all I'm going to say on that matter. You can finish saying what you're going to say, but I would love that to be a
History has
fact.
shown if you show up with enough weapons and you say, yeah, we don't like this, the government will back down. And again, you don't have to be violent. You just have to show that you're willing to be violent. In case they decide if they
You
use
remember
force,
what
you show that
happened
you
during the
have more
Civil War,
force.
right?
I'm just saying you have to be willing to show up and say that if you try to use force, we will use force, and we've got the numbers. No one wants to overthrow the U.S. government, and that's very true. Oh, you can't fight off the U.S. military. That's weird because Afghanistan did.
Well,
Name the
I'm not
combat
saying
situation
that
we've
we
won.
can't fight the U.S. military. I'm saying we shouldn't fucking have to.
I don't think we would.
I,
I'm
I,
simply saying you have to be willing to say. I mean, the left is clearly willing to use violence, and they get their way, and the
right.
right says, "Oh, we can't be violent." And it's like,
Yeah, because the right is trying to be right, correct.
right,
They're not. They're trying to avoid being wrong, which is the point. Like, if the left is being wrong, then if the right does what the left's doing, they're just as wrong. Correct?
yeah,
All right. So, like, I'm not saying that something doesn't need to be done, because I'm saying that something does. I just don't know what. If I heard something that I honestly believe would work, I would be like, yeah, that's what we need to do. Until then, I'm like, I hope it does. I hope it makes a difference.
Well, I don't think the thing going on in Albuquerque is actually going to last. I don't think in any way, shape, or form. I think there are enough people. Even David Hogg has come out against it. Um,
What?
yeah, do you know who David Hogg is?
I know who David Hogg is. That's why it's hard for me to swallow that one.
Yeah, but he's
He's
come
just
out.
fucking vying for politics himself. So
Well, that could be, but when you start losing that
no,
group,
he definitely is. That he's intending to run for something. He was making that pretty obvious, like literally saying that he was intending to run for something.
well, that's fine. I'm simply saying that when they start losing that kind of crowd, it's just not going to last. They don't have the political back for it. I mean, in my preferred method of resolution, someone quickly challenges it, uh, court quickly stays the executive order, and it goes to court. The state loses, and it's done. That's the preferred method of dealing with this problem. It is only if the state, for some weird, freakish reason, decides to really push the issue. The governor is just, in my opinion, this is a bid for that governor to score points on the left. It is not something that's going to hold up, um, but it'll get her anti-gun bona fides out so she can try for something bigger later on. So the same thing that you're saying kind of for David Hogg, I would say the same thing for this governor. Um, and I don't think there's a snowball's chance in my microwave of that thing working.
Well, that, yeah, like, okay, so I don't necessarily think it was going to work. I think it's complete bullshit. But the thing is that they've gotten away with so much of that shit lately
Well,
that
yeah,
it's very disturbing to me.
the whole thing with COVID was disturbing, and that's what this is predicated on, that you can get rid of people's rights because of an emergency, which is actually explicitly against what the Constitution says.
Right?
There is no emergency exception clause.
There is a martial law.
Well, again, Second Amendment shall not be infringed.
Right, but there is a martial law.
I get it.
Martial law tells you that you have to be indoors at a certain time. They can set curfews, and there are things that they can take advantage of with that, which is, I think, what she's trying to imply.
Yeah, well, I don't think she wins this legally.
I totally hope not, and I would
can
think
you
that
imagine?
she shouldn't. I would
What's
think
the argument? Criminals are being violent with guns, so we need to de-arm the population of law-abiding people so
Yeah,
that they
that's
can
been the
defend
theory all
themselves.
along. That's been pushed since 1930s.
Oh, I know. That's
Like
like I was at a restaurant once. I won't say the name because I'm sure there might be good. It's a franchise, and I'm sure there are places where they're good, but whatever. I will say it serves chicken wings. That's their primary. That's their specialty. That's all I'll say.
chicken wings.
Yeah, chicken wings. And my family and I had gone there, and they would not let me pay until only my server was allowed to ring me up, and nobody could find my server. I'm like, well, what happens if you quit? Am I stuck here for the rest of my life? And they're like, we'll figure it out. Just give us a minute. And it was like, a half hour, an hour of waiting around for this guy to show up. And that's probably longer than what it really was, but I was pissed. And
Yeah,
so I said, I'm either going to pay or I'm going to leave. But, so if you want your money, you ring me up now. Or if you don't want your money, cool, I'm taking my family and we're leaving. And one of the servers was like, do we have to call the cops? And I was like, please do. I'm being held against my will. What are you going to do? Tell the cops that I tried to pay, but you wouldn't let me, and therefore I've broken some law? It was like, what do you think the cops are going to tell you? They're going to say, ring this fool out and let him on his way, which is all I wanted anyway. So eventually, they started, I get that there are problems. And the only real thing that really bothered me was then the manager started getting crappy with me. And I let him know pretty quickly. I was like, look, you can shut up or you can eat your teeth. But it's like, I can't help it. Your system is stupid. I can't help it that you have no power over this. Like, that's none of my concern. My concern is this is my time and you will not let me do this. So I don't really care. I didn't agree to be your permanent hostage.
Right. And you're a patron, not an employee.
Yeah.
Or you haven't given them the right power of attorney or any of that shit. So.
Now we're being secretive.
Not anymore. Yeah, well, I guess now we're outed.
For being secretive. We're plotting. Nobody knows what we're plotting or what we're being secretive about, so it doesn't really
I
matter.
would never give my plots away online. Only my friends. Because they would never stab me in the back. Just like I would never stab them in the back.
Took me a minute to figure out what you were talking about.
I got that from your response.
Yeah, I was like, I don't understand what that connects to. They're not a very big presence in Indiana, whereas the one I mentioned is.
You don't know what that is. Oh, wait a minute. You mean like
Yeah.
okay, yep. All right. Like I should have taken that from the original clue, but
It's all right.
I'm dumb today.
I'm making you think. I'm pushing you. It's not nice on a Saturday night. Sorry.
No, it's not bad. Like somebody needs to.
Hey, so getting out of politics and talking about art for a minute.
Yay!
You're a fan of Frank Frazetta, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So you know how sometimes his anatomy wasn't perfect because it just wasn't going to look right if the anatomy was perfect?
He exaggerated anatomy.
Right.
For dramatic purpose. So
okay.
it wasn't the it's not going to look right. It was it's going to get my what I want to portray across.
Okay.
So
well,
I mean it's not that he couldn't have done it correctly and it would have looked right, but it didn't have the same power. Like you're talking about guys that have 12 abs and
yeah.
yeah.
And that's again, I think Michelangelo did kind of the same thing with David. The proportions of that statue are completely wrong. Unless
that's brilliant.
Yeah, because when you stand in front of it, it looks right.
Yeah, because it's elevated.
Right.
And it's not just David. He did that with a couple of other statues that if you look at them dead on, they look like monkeys because their arms are so long.
Yeah.
But when you're standing down and viewing up as far as you're supposed to be viewing on it,
right?
Then, yeah, it looks right then. Yeah.
So, yeah. So I don't think Frank Frazetta made mistakes on that. I think he made an artistic decision, and and I'm not trying to disparage him in any way, shape, or form. But I
Oh
was
no, I
looking.
was just clearing it up because I know, man. Uh, not only have I read up on him, I visited the museum. I talked to his son. You know, I
Cool.
talked to other people, other artists that are really great artists that have known him, and so I just knew a little bit about it, and I wanted to, because we were talking about it in such a public forum, straighten out just that he didn't do it because it wouldn't look right. He did it because he wanted that. Have you ever looked close at Rosetta's colors? Because that is what amazes me.
Oh no, I was simply the reason why I brought up the Frank Frazetta thing was I was looking at your background before you launched your camera, right?
What?
And you know your background that you have on your screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, the stuff.
Cthulhu. The
Yeah,
Cthulhu
Cthulhu.
painting.
Yeah, I know
Okay.
the background.
Well, no, I didn't know because, like you said, background, and I'm looking behind me. I'm like, because
No,
we
no,
were talking before I switched to this camera, and I was like, I'm looking behind me, going, "What's in the background?"
no,
I
no, no,
do
no,
have
no, no.
Rosetta prints in the background, actually.
No. The
I have
video.
5 plates from Fire and Ice that Rosetta drew. So, anyway,
No, because I was looking at the background of it, before you launched, and it was like I just, it's Cthulhu. He can look like whatever. Don't get me wrong. But then it was like,
yeah,
all right, I think there are 8 abs there, kind of looking things, and I was
yeah,
like, but then I was like, that's kind of like a Frank Frazetta thing. And then I was like,
yeah.
and Rich knows Frank Frazetta. He's a big fan. I was like, I wonder if that could be a little bit of a little wink and a nod
It
to.
is definitely a nod to him. Thank you for noticing.
Oh well, there you go.
I don't know if I actually stated it during the video, but nobody's actually mentioned it.
Oh
I
well,
did state several times during the video that the composition was that everything is pointing or looking at Cthulhu except for the moon,
yeah.
which is representative of his madness and the light shining on him or whatever. But yeah, yes, that's it. And speaking of David, this composition actually is an upshot. So her foot, which should be the size of, it should fit between her wrist and her elbow,
Yeah.
is much bigger. Her calf is much bigger, like it's the same size as her thigh, which is not right uh, anatomically, but it is from the view that she is, how wide and big her torso is compared to her thigh, you know.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's all intentional.
Cool.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know anybody that hasn't been influenced by Cthulhu. Cthulhu.
Frank Frazetta.
Rosetta.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's amazing if you look close at Rosetta's colors. He's so subtle. Like you don't even notice at first that he's got complementary colors right next to each other because they're so grayed out or they're so light that they're all the same value. But it controls the emotion of the painting. Like if he wants you to feel like you're in a cold, stark environment, he uses the colors to do that. But it's just amazing. Like he'll put purples and yellows next to each other, and you wouldn't notice unless you're really looking close. You look at one arm in his paintings, just one arm, and the difference between the forearm and the shoulder, and you'll see like 7 or 8, maybe even 17 different colors, but they're all blended so well, so subtly. Yeah, now you got me gushing over Frazetta. Thanks. That is something that, you know, again, I don't ever expect to be, but I would love to. I would love to get close to that.
Got to start somewhere.
Uh, I also agree with his own commentary on that. He said he'd love much more to see a better you than a poor version of him.
Yeah.
And he broke molds. I mean, like you were saying, he added abs where he felt those abs would be needed and all that. And I totally think that's awesome. That's he deserves his place in history because of the things that he put in to art, not because he claims to have never used the model, which is provably not untrue, or he didn't swipe because also that's provably untrue. He just swiped from the best, you know what I mean? And stuff that was rare in his field. So he wasn't copying Boris Vallejo or whatever. He was copying artists that were older than Dunn and Wyeth, and you see what I mean?
Yeah.
But what he wasn't copying was putting those subtle colors in, putting the emotions in, adding the abs where he wanted to add the abs, not just because he wanted to add abs, but it's to effect. Everything is to effect. He didn't add abs on somebody that's scrunched over. He added abs on somebody that was stretching those abs.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, well, like I said, I'm not just discussing this with you. Somebody in the future might see this and
be
might
educated.
might see this and go, "Hey, that's interesting." Yeah, Frazetta was a master in so many ways. Yeah, even to be slightly compared to him is a compliment in my book. But I would love to more be my own, just have the abilities, the skills that he had.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
very light hand and everything. Like he could light hand watercolor in such a way that wow, it doesn't even look like watercolor sometimes.
well,
Amazing.
I'm just pointing out that you have way more skill than I do, and part of that's I'm sure because you practiced a lot more than I ever did, and part of it, could just be talent. But people, there are people today that look to Frank Frazetta, and later on they may look to you the same way.
I should be so lucky, or I don't know if that's lucky.
I don't think that's luck. I mean, some of it is. I mean, there's a lot of things that do with luck, but I mean, part of it is you've put in the time, you've put in the effort, and it definitely was like it's never going to happen with me, at least not with art.
Definitely, I mean, it's flattering to think so. What I really would like to do is to help other people with what I'm doing. Like, even if I'm never any kind of level of success artistically,
right?
Like doing comics or doing whatever. I mean, Frazetta was kind of canceled out of comics before he did paintings, and he should never have been. I mean, that man was a master with a brush and concept. I mean, yeah, like I could gush over Frazetta for hours, but like and I didn't know this until after he died, and that's something that sucks because I would have definitely taken advantage of it. He would, if you came to his house, he would feed you and talk paintings with you and talk shows and movies and music and what inspired him, and like it was like he didn't feel the need, and there's a lot of guys that do, to be secretive about what he does. You know,
Right.
like I have seen him make claims that he's never used a model, and we know he has. Generally, it's a couple of them are the same models, but for a lot of it, he didn't need a model. He'd use himself, or his wife was around, or um, but he wouldn't withhold. And I remember like Guy Aitchison was a tattoo artist, and his sister Hannah was on LA Ink. I think he made an appearance on that too. But he's been a famous tattoo artist almost since I started tattooing, so 30 years at least more. And he had said once that he would he wouldn't ever withhold an answer like that from anybody, because anything that he could do to help better the art that he loved,
Yeah.
he would be more than willing to be a part of. And I've always admired that. And like I did charge to teach tattooing, but I put everything into teaching tattooing. Like I have been more heartbroken over tattooing than some ex-girlfriends. You know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
yeah, because they're your kids, kinda.
Yeah.
You're going to release them on the world, and you want to make sure that not only do they know what they're doing, but that they can achieve the looks that they're trying to achieve for themselves. You know, Frazetta was great about that. Like, I'd love to be able to pass that on. Like, I'm always stating that there's many ways to achieve something, not just my way. But that's kind of why, because I'm not trying to achieve what the next artist is trying to achieve. I'm trying to achieve what I'm trying to achieve. The next artist has to find their own way. But if I can teach them some techniques that can get a certain look, or they know that layering, layering 1,000 times or whatever isn't a bad thing, or they're not afraid to mess up, that they can go over something if they mess up. Those are the things I'm trying to teach. I think they're fundamentals, and if I can help people learn, if I can help people like that, I don't know. I guess that sounds really weird, right? But that's what I'd love to be able to do. That's what I'd love to be able to have my legacy be. That I was able to help people achieve, you goals that they couldn't have otherwise, or didn't feel like they could have otherwise. And now that seriousness is over, because, yeah, I mean, I guess I'm a teacher too, just a different kind.
Absolutely.
You wanna you wanna see your students be the best that they can be, right? Like no matter what they choose to do, you want them to be good at it. Or like obviously I'm not talking about criminal enterprises, but
Hey, if they're going to be criminals, they should give me a kickback anyway, just because.
if you're
I
going to
need
be
it.
criminals, don't be stupid criminals.
Yeah. Let's be smart about it.
Yeah, like don't be known to be a criminal, because if you're known to be a criminal, that's not smart.
There was a case a few years ago, like decades ago, where there were some people.
Yeah, I'm that age too.
Yeah. There were some
Like
guys
decades
running
ago.
cocaine like through Indiana. And
Was it Tim
eventually,
Allen?
well, they were running the cocaine and they were making tons of money and they were buying all these houses and all this stuff. And, they were basically like, well, nobody looks for, we don't speed. Like they basically were very careful with doing everything and and eventually I think it was somebody got suspicious because they were buying houses with cash and, nice houses and things. And, they couldn't quite explain how they got the funds to do that, and it kind of brought it out. But overall, they're like, dumb criminals get caught all the time, and that's generally what happens. The problem with smart criminals is that eventually it leads back to them. But I'm like, well, you
Well,
must
the
not be
problem
smart
with
enough.
smart criminals is that they do something stupid
Usually,
because buying houses with cash is stupid.
I agree. You should have gotten, but again, how do you get a mortgage when you don't have any income? That's why you got to have some kind of job, or you got to have something that you can better launder your money. So,
Or you have to pay taxes on your money and claim that you earned it as an independent contractor, or make
right,
up a dummy, whatever. But as long as you're paying taxes on your money and it's all up and up that way, they're less likely to catch some stupid shit. But I don't. Yeah, drugs is another whole section commentary, right?
oh,
Um,
I'm surprised at how much my opinion on, like, being raised in the whole Nancy Reagan era, just say no, and marijuana is going to, it's going to mess up your
the
DNA and make you,
gateway drug.
and it's just like, now that I'm older and I see what that was used as a pretext for, I'm like, yeah, the cure was way worse than the disease. And, but I
Well,
also don't think when you start going towards the extreme the other way where like what is it, Oregon that legalized everything, and it's like, yeah, that's a bad idea.
well, hmm. So that's vices. It's legalizing, trying to illegalize. Hmm.
I don't know.
Well, if you make it legal, you call it legalization. What do
Yeah,
you call it if you make it illegal?
prohibited.
Criminalized.
Yeah, there you go.
So if you criminalize, this is a vice. They're criminalizing somebody's good time. Yes, I know that you know those crimes can cause harm to themselves and others, but you can't fly a plane that you can guarantee is going to stay in the air.
Right.
So if you have passengers, that could kill them. If you crash into a highway, you could kill other people. There's, and I'm using a plane as kind of an extreme example, but what is it that you can legally do that really can't hurt somebody in some way that you can enjoy?
Well,
There's very little things, and,
I
and
think
they're trying to pick on those things too, like video games or whatever. And I'm not a supporter of video games, by the way. People are going to hate me for it, but uh, I'm not a supporter for video games because video games are a pastime that become a full time. Like,
well, that would be kind of the argument, I think, more for against drugs. With if they can become, if they're addictive, then you lose control.
okay,
um,
so what I'm saying is, I'm not saying to make video games illegal because I don't like them. I'm saying I don't like them because they're a pastime that they take people's initiative away. They take it's like the Matrix. They plug your brain into something that takes you out of reality, that lets all this bullshit in reality happen, because you're not paying attention to what's really going on. I'm not saying you, and I'm not saying everybody that plays the games, and I'm not saying that you should make it illegal. Just be aware of it. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, but
Instead, what you get is people campaigning against uh, um, stuff like political correctness and whatever in video games, and I can see that. But again, it's a pastime. You know, if
right.
you're living your life in that video game, you're not actually living your life. You're playing a video game. That's the same as if you were smitten by chess or Dungeons and Dragons. If you've never left reality, you know, or if you never
Well, that's the
were in reality, you know,
same
you
argument
never.
against books. You know, if
I
you're
don't know
reading all the
anyone
time.
that I don't know anyone that reads books to a point that they don't watch movies, go out and eat, you know, socialize. Even if it's online or whatever, I know most people that I know that read want to talk about it. I might be wrong. I mean, but and this is qualified by saying most people I know.
Well,
That
that's
read.
fine. I'm just, I don't know. I mean, I mean, to some extent, I agree with you because, like, a lot of my friends, they play video games and they're like, "Well, don't you ever play?" And I'm like, "I don't have time to anymore.
Right.
I don't feel like I have time. Like, I got to make stuff. Like, I got stuff to do."
Now, see,
And
here's my argument for writing. Just when I'm sorry to interrupt, but when you said that, that's my argument for writing. Writing, yeah, you're living in an imaginary world or whatever, but you're working towards something that has the ultimate goal of being work. Like it'll
right,
pay you at some point, hopefully, right? Sorry, that's just what I wanted to interject because
no, I mean,
that's my argument for writing.
again, I agree with that 100%, and there's nothing wrong with that. And the only thing
Just
about
me
the video
interrupting you.
games
That's all.
that I worry about, I guess, is that I see them as another text, or some of the ones that I would enjoy have a story. Like that's always the thing that I don't care about gameplay, and I don't think I have for decades. I care about story. So like the last game that I played, I think was it was a Star Wars game that introduced the redhead, and I forget his name, and I forget the series. They had just released the second one of it, and but I didn't play it to play. I played it for the story. BioShock was the same way. The stories of BioShock are great. I mean, they're not perfect, but I didn't care about the gameplay. The gameplay was just the hassle to get through so I could see the story. Um, so when I look at some of that stuff, I'm like, you just like they say, you have to read a whole bunch. I'm like, you should be watching movies, you should be watching TV, you should be like to see what people are producing, so you can see what tropes are out there.
Oh boy, they're producing a lot of garbage right now. That's
Well,
what's mostly available is garbage.
but that's a good thing to be able to recognize. And when you
Okay,
ask,
but
and I don't watch a lot of TV because I don't have the time to, because
I
I'm trying to
I
make
am
stuff.
there with you. I don't watch a lot of TV. I don't watch a lot of movies actually. Really, I mean, when I do, they've been out for a while, and I've I've seen somebody else's recommendation on them. You know, it's really weird. But nowadays, I don't want to see stuff that's so full of crap. That's like the whole Last Voyage of the Demeter, right?
Right?
They it could have been a better movie, but I did enjoy some of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it despite the political crap. So that's something like I think it was worth watching, but it's based on something that was already written, right?
Yeah.
It's based on one chapter out of Dracula.
Yeah.
And then what they had was the opportunity to explore basically a whole cast of characters that they didn't. You know. Hmm.
What?
Well, I drew the fingers in at the wrong angle, so I'm gonna have to adjust that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get room enough to put the axe because she's holding an axe.
Okay. If you say so.
It's not a spear. It's just a long axe haft.
It's a ghost axe.
Well, it's going to be an axe. How about that?
Okay. I'm just, you know,
But I
right now
haven't
I would
told her
have
to
no idea
because
unless you said so.
yeah, you just know she's holding something up over her head. Well,
Yeah.
that's what it is. It's an axe. I just haven't gotten it in yet.
Hey, I'm going to take a break just for a second. Well, more than a second. And I'll be right back. Okay.
I'm not going anywhere yet.
Well, I've had about 4 Diet Dr. Peppers.
Hey,
So, I've got the Forrest Gump problem. So I'll be back in a minute.
the Forrest Gump problem. Hmm.
Anyway. Oh. Yeah, that scene in Forrest Gump where I think he meets Kennedy and they give him
Yeah, he
all kinds
shows
of
his
Dr.
wound.
Pepper. Yeah. So, oh, I don't drink regular Dr. Pepper, but my goodness, I drink plenty of diet.
Yeah, I can't handle so much of that. It's got high sodium too.
What, sodium?
Yeah, I try to avoid that.
And it's got 60 milligrams.
Yeah,
That's nothing.
it's
Nothing.
to me. It is to my body. It's to my
Okay.
doctor.
So, have I never told you about Element, which
Yeah,
sponsors all kinds?
you told me about that drink that you did that's got a high
Yes.
sodium.
Yeah, 1,000 milligrams in one packet. Yeah.
Yeah, that's supposed to be my daily count, dude. I
Well,
think it's actually I'm supposed to be under it. I'm not, but I'm supposed to be. It's hard
well,
because everything has sodium in it.
this is, I mean, again, it's for like one of the things that, like right now, I've been following my low carb diet that I used years ago, then lost a whole bunch of weight, and then I stopped doing it, and then I gained a whole bunch of weight. So this time I'm just not going to stop, but it's good for people that are losing their electrolytes, and low carb diets can do that. Um, and then also, if you're working out, again, that's it's got sodium, potassium, magnesium. It's good for people who are working out. But not that I'm giving medical advice because I'm not a doctor and I've never played one on TV. But it's just one of those things where uh, I have found that by drinking that, I don't get cramps anywhere near as often. I feel better after workouts, that kind of thing. It's just more powerful Gatorade, basically.
Okay. I can't because I have heart failure. So
Right. Well, again,
we're in a different place when it comes to that. So
I just find it funny because I'm thinking 60 milligrams. That's nothing.
well, and I wasn't saying, whatever. I'm not in comparison to what you're doing.
Right.
I'm talking about what I'm supposed to be able to do.
Right. I just find it funny. I mean, that's kind of interesting to me that it's wildly, and again, different
Okay,
situations
so
call
I've
for different
also
things.
had different doctors, just to show you another example.
Oh yeah, I get
That
it.
no, hold on, I'm not done.
Okay.
I've also had different doctors tell me that I need to not. Uh, I have to have a low cholesterol, low
Okay.
cholesterol, whatever, and they don't want me actually eating eggs because eggs are high in cholesterol.
Right.
But yet, I've also seen other doctors and other studies that show there are two different types, or more than two different types of cholesterol, and some of it's good. When you don't eat stuff with cholesterol,
Well, that's like
you also lose uh, testosterone because testosterone creates
well, there's a lot of that stuff like with cholesterol. They're like, we
cholesterol
don't know
creates
why.
testosterone.
They know there's a correlation with cholesterol and heart problems, but they don't know what it is. And it's like, all right, cool. I mean, I get it. That's just like with blood pressure, and they're like, it used to be they wanted it under 140, and now they want it under 130, and it's just like, well, what changed? Well, we just have more data. It tends to be that if it's over 130, people have heart attacks. And like, so does it cause heart attacks? We're like, well, we don't know that. It's a strong correlation. And so like that stuff with the cholesterol, they're like, yeah, it tends to be that people who have a whole bunch of cholesterol tend to have heart problems. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the cholesterol causes them. It just means that it tends to be present. And I'm not arguing because I don't know. I mean, I definitely don't know more than my doctor does. It's just one of those things where I've always thought that was kind of interesting when you just get different body types and different situations, and I just find the whole stuff. The variability is something I find interesting. That's all. I don't think there's a one way of doing it. I think there's probably several, and it kind of depends on your body. And that's what I think. I think our medical field would probably be better off if we stopped trying to find the single right way and instead started looking at what tend to be the right ways.
Well,
But
another thing that, and I've noticed this. I don't know if you've noticed it with your doctors, but I have with mine. That uh, they if they're a specialist in something,
yeah,
like we're talking about the heart, so we'll use that as an example. They don't take into account other factors that could cause those symptoms. That makes
okay,
sense. Like they will tell you that, for instance, oh, you're getting cramps when you're walking, or your leg hurts when you're walking. That's because it's not getting enough air to it. Well, I have a diabetic callus on my foot. Could that be what's hurting? You know what I mean? Like I don't usually walk on an incline. could that be what's hurting my shins? You know what I mean? They're like, there's no other factors. It must be this. And that is a trend that I have noticed with doctors. Ta-da!
Yeah, that's everyone though. I mean, if you're a heart specialist, you're going to think it's a heart problem. If you're a
Right, that's what I'm
neurologist,
saying.
you're going to think it's a brain problem. Yeah.
And if you're a um, endocrinologist,
Yeah.
it's going to be a symptom of your diabetes because they crisscross and they have similar symptoms. And doctors, I've noticed, specialists in particular, tend to not talk to each other and tell each other what's up. Like, I've talked to this person and they told me this. Well, no. Okay, that clears things up. It must be this, but it doesn't feel like that. Well, it must be.
Yeah.
So doctors not only don't know everything, they misdiagnose a lot. What they do, there's a book, I can't remember the name of it, but I want to say it's uh, the first 15 minutes, the first 5 minutes, something like that. And this was told to me by my physical therapist. That in this book, it tells you that most doctors will listen to you for a couple of minutes, whatever that number is.
Yeah.
And after that, they make a diagnosis from the information they got from you within that certain amount of time.
Right.
So everything else that you say after that, they're not even listening. They've already come to a conclusion.
Yeah, I discovered that. I mean, I don't want to disparage my cardiologist because I like the guy and I keep going to him. So don't get me wrong.
Because you like the guy and you keep going to him, or because you're going to keep going to him anyway?
I'm going to go to him because I overall I trust what he's doing.
Okay, that's right.
It was kind of telling to me. I had this procedure done. I forget what it's called. My wife knows. Where it's basically an ultrasound, but instead of staying on the outside, they shove it down your throat.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so I was awake for the entire thing, but loopy beyond belief. And as I was coming out of the loopiness, he's talking to my wife, and she said some of the exact stuff that I had told my doctor, but he had dismissed it when it came from me. But when it came from her, it became more important for some reason. Like I don't know if he wasn't paying attention to me when I said it. I don't know if he didn't believe me. I don't know. But when she said it, all of a sudden he listened.
That's also a theory that they're taught, is that all patients lie.
That's true. I mean, I understand that, but it's just, and that's again not what I don't feel bad for the guy. I don't feel like he's doing anything wrong per se. It's just one of those things where it's like sometimes I'm like, I don't want to feel like I need my wife to come with me to my doctor's appointment, but I cannot understand why I see like older couples, especially, why that happens. Because sometimes they just don't want to listen to the actual patient. Also, my wife knows way more medical stuff than I do, and so in
my experience, and I don't want to sound sexist, but in my experience, more wives do know about that shit. I think it's their nature. The same thing as like watching true crime. It's a thing kind of built into women, that they want to know how a criminal did something, or if something bad happens to somebody they care about, they want to know why, how, what the what the proper treatments are for it, or possible treatments are for it, what to expect, you know.
Right. Well, one of the things I always hated, you know how like, as a parent, I mean, I'm dad. I do things. I'm there. I'm involved. Whatever. But but there's always that, I don't know, that for me at least, that anxiety of, oh well, I don't know as much for the care of my children as my wife does, because my wife is their mother, so therefore she must know and be able to care better than I can. So there's already that kind of, that bias built
Well,
in.
you know, honestly, doesn't she? The
At this
same,
age,
it's
no.
it's the same thing. It's the same thing I was just talking about. Women get on this, they want to know everything. So, like, they do. They know everything about everything that they can find out, or that interests them, or that they're worried about. You ever watched Mark Mark Gungor?
No.
I want to say Mark Gungor. It's something like that. Let me look it up, see if I can find it real quick.
Well, while you look that up, all I was saying was I would hate taking my children to the doctor, because I would be like, okay, what things do you want me to ask? And she would give me a list of things she wants me to ask. Fine. Okay, cool. I would ask everything she asked. I would ask as many follow up questions as I could possibly think of. And every single time, there was always some other question that she would ask me because she wasn't there, that I wouldn't know the answer to. And I'm like, and I hated it. I hated, because every time I knew she's going to ask me something I'm not going to know the answer to. And that's just how it works. I hated it.
Okay,
So,
so I'm putting a link in the private chat.
okay.
Um, you want to click on it because after the show is over, you're not going to be able to find that private chat ever again.
All right.
For some reason, it doesn't hold on to them. Like, you were saying something, and I was asking you to put information in the box, and
Yeah, that did not
I
take
never
me there.
got back to it because I couldn't find it.
That took me to YouTube in general.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah. Like I
Oh, I
clicked on
see
it.
why. No, I see why. When I cut and paste, sometimes it's really weird when I copy.
Yeah.
They'll only grab where my mouse hits, not the whole thing in the bar, and then sometimes they'll grab the whole thing in the bar. There we go. It is Mark Gunger. He's a writer, comedian, marriage counselor, Christian also, but this section is a section of one of his like marriage counseling weekends or whatever.
Yeah.
It's called The Tale of Two Brains. Uh, David Farland used it as a great example because he was talking about how we link memories or things to memories, like sights, smells, or whatever. That's
Yeah.
why he's talking about the importance of sensory in writing, like describing what the sensory perception is, because like you'll have something that you smell that reminds you of grandma, or
Right.
something that you taste that reminds you of mom's home cooking, or something that has a bad memory because of the taste or whatever. Like I have a bad memory associated with sugar cookies, but so this is it. It's comical. You'll laugh, but it speaks truisms all over the place. And when I'm talking about the difference between men and women, that's what he's actually talking about. Uh, Talking about the way our brains work, the way our brains naturally work. And women associate everything together. It's like a constant jumble, like electric currents moving through this jumbled wire. And men have boxes. And we put our concerns for something in that box, and that box isn't allowed to touch any of the other boxes. So we compartmentalize in our brains, and women don't. Women do it the opposite way. We shut down. We deal with this, and then we're done, and we go home, and we shut that part down, and we open the next box that we have to deal with. Women are like everything. They have to deal with everything all at once, and their brains are going crazy because they're trying to keep up with everything all at once. But when you talk about the kids, there's a whole bunch of sensory prompts, if you will, that women have that we don't associate, that we don't do it that way. Where they would remember things that we don't necessarily remember. But they also have places that they don't think are very important. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just a either or. We all have the things that we're better at. When you were saying, you know, is she better at being a parent than you is really what you're getting at. And I wasn't saying that she was better at being a parent than you, but she's better when it comes to remembering shit about the kids for the most part. Or I wouldn't be surprised if she's better at remembering shit for the kids for the most part, because she's got a lot of prompts, memory prompts, sensory prompts. My mother-in-law once told us, once you have kids, your life's not yours anymore. It's the kids. It hasn't stopped me from trying to be, you know, who I was trying to be, but it kind of stopped somebody. You know what I mean?
Well, that's fine. I just knew that it was a chip on my shoulder. That was one of those things where it's like it builds it just affects my anxiety to where I just dreaded having to do it. Not because I didn't want to do something for my kids, but because I just felt like I'm going to be questioned about it. And no matter what I do, there will always be a question I'm not prepared for, which I could do the exact same thing to her. I don't. So it's just not the way I do things. I just figure she's got it handled, and I trust her. She doesn't trust me, which
I'll know when you watch that video, because that's covered also. I watched a longer version of it. There's a couple of longer versions of it. It's so interesting, actually.
But I think I may have seen, like I hit it like you said, so I
think I've shared it before.
Yeah, you might have, because I think I may have seen it. I don't know. I'll have to watch it again. I didn't know the guy's name.
Definitely worth watching again, because it'll elicit a chuckle or two.
Probably. Oh yeah, I have no problem looking at it again. I just thought it's just one of those things where I didn't even know what the guy's name was. So the fact that you know it, I was like, all right, I'll go watch it again. But yeah, I played it long enough.
I wasn't for sure, but I was pretty sure that it was Mark Gungor, and it is. So anyone that's interested, Mark Gungor is A Tale of Two Brains, or the short version is The Nothing Box, but Tale of Two Brains is a little bit more in depth. I like it better, which is why I recommend it.
Well, I will have to watch it, just not right now.
I watched it with my wife, and I recommended it to people who, when you're a tattoo artist, kind of you're part artist, but you're also part bartender.
Yeah.
You're part doctor. I don't want to say doctor, but you can troubleshoot the stuff that you work with. When I say doctor, that's what I mean. Medical stuff associated with the field. But yeah, so you're kind of part bartender too, because people want to tell you what's going on when they're in their lives while they're getting tattooed. I mean, obviously, you only have so much to talk about before it's uncomfortable silences, or uncomfortable buzzing. Uncomfortable buzzing for a lot of guys, not for me, because the machines I use are rotary, so they're damn near silent.
Oh, Lord. Oh. So a friend of mine posted this thing on Facebook that like he owned his own business and I guess he sold it and all this stuff. But so he was talking about how he was a walking country song because he got divorced recently, and he's like, I don't have my business, I don't have my wife, I don't even have my dog.
Right?
And
That's what you get when you play a country song backwards.
a dog and
Your
a
home
wife.
back, your dog back, your truck back.
But his now ex-wife replied to that, and she's like, "Dude, it was my seeing eye dog."
Yeah, that changes things a little bit.
little bit.
It's hard to sympathize with that.
Yeah, but I laughed quite a bit on that one. I was just like, "That's hilarious."
Yeah, that and your blind wife left you, so
Yeah, how bad did you screw up?
yeah, right.
Did things just not feel the same for her?
You've changed. Like literally, I can feel the difference.
Yeah. Oh gosh, we're going to hell for these ones.
And if we're going to hell, it's going to be for something worse than just that.
Probably.
That's
But
an
I don't know.
obvious observation.
Making fun of blind people is going to be on the list.
Making fun of blind people, we were on our side.
Yeah. My wife has to go to this conference, and she's carpooling. And originally, like I have no worries. Don't get me wrong, I'm not worried. But the media guy and her were going to go down together. It was going to be the media guy, his wife, and my wife all in the same vehicle. And then the media guy's wife, her mother fell and broke her leg, and so the wife is staying
A lot
home
of
to
stuff
take care.
happening to mothers lately.
Yeah, well, but so then the media guy and my messaged my wife, and he's like, "Do you care? Like, are you good to drive if it's my car?" And I was trying to figure out how that was what was going on there. Apparently, he's going to work on things while she drives. I don't know, but I was like, you did mention that you had a stroke a few years back and you can't see out of one of your eyes, right? No, minor details a driver or the owner of the car.
Important.
I mean, I trust my wife to drive, and it's not a big problem, at least during the day. But at night, I'm like, nope, I'll drive.
Well, she's definitely got impaired depth perception.
Yeah, I mean, she does, and it's
That's
like
not making
watching.
fun of her. That's just stating facts.
Yeah, she it's 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 like watching scrambled cable in one eye. Even when she closes her eyes, that's what it's like. And then the other eye, is normal. But yeah, that whole, are you good to drive? I'm like, well, I think you should maybe know about this, but
It might be important.
yeah,
Might be worth mentioning.
yeah, just in case.
Maybe in passing, by the way, I'm blind in this eye.
Yeah, So
I'm fine
as
with
long as
driving,
he's
but
okay with
I
it,
can see out of his eye. Right.
yeah. That's one of those details you should mention before doing it, not after,
Yeah, right.
just in case.
And
So,
again, discussed it before. I'm sure you heard me say something about it before. In the tattooing industry, we get that all the time. We have a questionnaire that says, is there anything that your tattoo artist should be informed of? And
right.
regularly, they don't inform us of shit that's important, like passing out at the site of needles, being allergic to bacitracin, or, you know what I mean, stuff that
Yeah.
could be literally detrimental to their health.
Right. And they just check no. Nope, there's nothing. I'm good.
Yeah, right. Because they think that we're going to turn them down. But
Right.
the thing that they're not getting out of that is that it's their health that's going to suffer the price.
Right. Well, I can, I don't understand people that like Rhonda will watch them tattoo on her. And I'm just like, no, like, I don't want to watch that. Nope. I don't want to know.
Oh, all the time. I've actually told people they can't watch. You can't watch the process. Don't look until it's done. But they always do. But I'm a very light-handed artist, so
I just think,
that's a different factor. Is when the shader feels like it's really kind of scratching your back, like
yeah,
just itching you. It's
yeah.
not a big deal to watch it,
Well, I'm a big believer in the blood-brain barrier. Don't watch it. Like, it's just, you don't want to send signals to your, for me at least, I don't want to send signals to my brain that I'm being hurt. So I just ignore it. Like, if I'm getting blood drawn, I don't watch. Like, I don't mind getting it done. I have no reservations about doing it.
That's I kind of agree with that a little bit, because like when I go to get blood drawn, or I don't want to watch them stick a needle in me.
Right.
They might hurt, they might not hurt, but tattooing, I find, for me and for most of my clients, they come in thinking it's going to hurt, but they leave with a different opinion of it because it doesn't hurt like they thought it was going to. After a while, it hurts no matter what, but
Yeah.
After, like, for a long time, for a long period of the tattooing, it's going to feel like just somebody scratching an itch on you. Then you're going to be tempted to watch the art take place. And if it's not feeling painful, and I don't know, like even people that are bleeding are like, okay. Like I've never seen anyone that. No, that's not true. I've had very rarely people that can't watch, or that don't try to watch. And the ones that don't try to watch, it's like a testament to their uh, commitment to getting tattooed from me. It's like really weird. They're like, I'm not going to watch. I just trust you. And they're just hum-de-dum, talking on the phone in one hand. And like, okay, that's what you're into.
Well, if you don't
But
trust the guy, I wouldn't. I mean, I've seen people that want to use like listen to
I know
music.
people. Sorry, I know tattoo artists that nail you hard too, like nail you hard. I saw one tattoo artist, very famous tattoo artist in the trade.
Yeah.
And before I saw him, I talked to a tattoo artist that he had tattooed. And he had tattooed the tattoo artist's hand, right?
Okay.
And it was so swollen up the next day, he couldn't put gloves on to do his own work.
Oh, wow.
And I saw him at a show wipe his forehead with sweat and then wipe the tattoo.
Oh.
This is a guy that's well known in the industry and well respected for his work in the industry. And man, I was like, I'd never let somebody tattoo. But in my he he's got an appellation that kind of warns you that you're in for it.
Mm.
Secretive here again.
Uh-oh. Huh. That's a great name. That is just great.
Yeah, well,
That could be used as some kind of bad gangster in a B movie plot. I mean, that is.
in in tattooing, like we get nicknames.
Yeah.
Or used to anyway. I don't know how it works nowadays.
What was your
when I
nickname?
got into it, we the person that taught you
Yeah.
chose your nickname.
No. Well, what was yours?
Originally,
Yeah.
the Straightjacket Picasso.
No. Picasso, huh?
Which I shortened to Straightjacket.
Okay.
Because it was really actually it was already taken. It's a comic book character's artistic name.
Oh, okay.
And that's Faust. And when he's painting, he's the Straightjacket Picasso. But apparently, I had mentioned something about the comic book in the presence of the guy that taught me, and it was the Straightjacket Picasso ever since until I changed it to just Straightjacket.
You've seen the first Wolverine movie, right?
The first Wolverine movie, or
Yeah,
the Wolverine?
The first one with the first Wolverine film that had Hugh Jackman, not the X-Men.
Yeah, the Wolverine.
Yeah.
It's based on a Frank Miller comic.
Okay. So the Sabretooth that's in that film, I mean, because there are a lot of things wrong with that film.
Wasn't that Liam
Shriver or whatever his name is?
Yep.
He was good. I mean, overall, that was, I think, one of the best parts of the film.
Yeah, he was good.
I just saw that there are rumors he's going to be in Deadpool 3.
But Marvel has been pulling a lot of those back, and Deadpool 3 only exists the way it exists because what's his face? The dude that plays Deadpool.
Oh, Reynolds?
Yeah, Ryan Reynolds convinced Hugh Jackman to come back and be Wolverine once more. Because when Hugh Jackman quit, he said he was done with the character after Logan.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that he wasn't going to be typecast or whatever because he was, he's rather versatile.
Yep.
But I agree. Liam Shriver was the better. However, they didn't really do Sabretooth right. Sabretooth is supposed to be blonde.
Yeah.
So I can see why they picked what was it? Big Sky? It was a wrestler that played him in the first one.
Yeah, the X-Men. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he looked good as Sabretooth.
I don't know if I necessarily agreed with that, but I could understand why they did it.
I just think that
I have a personal affection for Sabretooth. He's like my favorite of the villains, really.
I just think that they could. That would be a really. I mean, I think you could do his Sabretooth is way more intelligent than the one that was in the X-Men.
Yeah,
And
he taunts him.
yeah.
That you're talking about, was that Weapon X?
Yeah.
Not, it wasn't the Wolverine. It was Weapon X, because the Wolverine was that was the Frank Miller plot. That was the one that was in Japan with Mariko.
That was the second one.
Yeah, that was actually the Wolverine. The other one you're talking about it was from an X-Men series. It was
X-Men Origins Wolverine.
No.
That's what it is.
Yeah, but that's not what it's based on.
Oh, yeah, I get that. I'm just saying
There was an X-Men Origins Wolverine origin that Joe Quesada drew the whole thing, but that took place in the 1800s and stuff like that. No, that the one that you're talking about in the comic books was it's the Weapon X story, but I'm trying to remember what the hell it's called. Like I said, my brain tonight.
that's fine. I'm just saying I think the Sabretooth in that film as a character and concept,
Silver Fox and
just would be a really interesting, you could make a very good villain out of that guy.
Oh yeah, he is a very good villain, and that's the problem that I had with the depictions of him. And Liam Shriver is definitely the guy who played him best.
Yeah,
but they didn't. The writers, the costume makers, and all that didn't really make him in to Sabretooth the way Sabretooth looks.
Right.
And that was a disappointment for me, because he didn't have to have the funky headgear where it's like it's a headband that covers his ears, and but he definitely didn't have that wildness to his hair. Like, even Wolverine's not really. I mean, they do kind of come to points and stuff, but
yeah,
it's supposed to be wild hair. It's almost like that's helmet head, you know? Like he left his hat on so long that his hair does that shit or whatever. But Victor Creed, which is Sabretooth, should be blonde, and he's really blonde. The way they did it, they could have just, I don't want to say dye blonde, but they could have done a dirty blonde, you know what I mean? Something that made him not just look like Liam Shriver with fangs and long fingernails.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
I definitely did like his behavior and the way he portrayed the character, because it felt like he did some research, you know what I mean? And not just stepped into the role and did whatever.
That's just, I just think that would be I don't know. I just like something about that character from that film. And
oh yeah, he definitely was the guy that played him best.
Yeah. And I just think that, I know Sony's making that Craven film, and I can't see that. Huh?
Made.
Well, it's not out yet.
It's not out, but it's made.
Oh, okay. But it's just one of those things where I'm like, I've seen the trailer and I was like, I don't know. I have not seen a superhero film. A little bit with the most recent Batman, kind of, where you have a villain who really, he doesn't taunt Batman per se, but he's,
Yeah, he does.
Well, kind of, sort of.
He's not trying to taunt Batman so much as trying to. Well, yeah, I guess he is.
A little bit, but I would really like to see.
I think he's more trying to taunt Bruce Wayne, but he doesn't realize that they're the same, which is a big concern for a lot of the movie.
But I I would like to see a villain. I mean, Venom did this in the comic books for a while with Spider-Man, and they completely screwed that up with, you have basically the same character but evil.
Well,
And
villain. Venom wasn't a villain. Eddie Brock was the villain. That
okay,
was the guy that was wearing the Venom suit. Venom is a symbiote alien that was actually in love with Peter Parker. He was jealous of Mary Jane and all that.
oh yeah, I know the story.
Well, what I'm saying is that he wasn't a villain. And if you watch, he's kind of like Batman in a way where when he's fighting, he tries to protect the innocent.
Okay,
So
but
that's kind of where they led him into being not a villain.
I'm just saying his original run.
Now they've got anti Venom.
Yeah, I know. I but
Well, you're talking about the same but opposite, right?
yeah, I'm just saying. In the comics there was much more of a. Although even going back to Chameleon, the first Spider-Man villain. That's why a lot of people don't. You ever wonder why Spider-Man was, you know, J. Jonah Jameson hated him, thought he was a villain, and all that stuff. Part of that goes back to Chameleon impersonating him, but just really screwing over with the hero, really making the hero suffer because you're going after the hero. You're not necessarily trying to get world domination. You're just trying to screw over the hero. Um, and I just think that Sabretooth character could Sabretooth could do that to Wolverine, and they kind of did it a little bit in that movie, but not as much as I would have liked. Because there were just too many characters and too many things going on. And if they
The
just
irony of that is that it's Wolverine that wants to kill Sabretooth.
right, which makes it even more interesting. I mean, I just think that whole dynamic could be explored.
Sabretooth just saying, "You're just as much of a killer as I am." He's just fucking with him and taunting with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Sabretooth a lot.
Uh, 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 uh. Do you have Peacock TV?
I think we downloaded it on the Roku. I
Okay.
don't really search for that. I just discovered. You go ahead and say what you're going to say first, and then I'll tell you what I just discovered.
Well, I mean, my understanding is that NBC owns Peacock, right? It's basically NBC's streaming service, right?
Right.
So when I see a poster for the Continental, which is going to have Mel Gibson, and it's, from the world of John Wick, which part of me is, I found the world building in John Wick kind of interesting. So I'd like to see more. But I also think if it's on Peacock, it can't be as good as it would have been had it been in theaters, because it's going to have to be restrained in their violence and gore and sex. Because I didn't think that Peacock was going to stream stuff like if it was on HBO.
It's owned by NBC, but it's not NBC.
Well, that's what I don't have Peacock, so I don't know.
It's not public television. It's basically like Paramount Plus, right? Where Paramount Plus has got a whole bunch of like Paramount movies and stuff like that, but they've got a certain amount of shows like 18 what was it, 1888 or 1880 something, the Sam Elliott prequel to Yellowstone.
Yeah, well, except for again with Paramount, I was like, well, that's a movie. That's a movie
Yeah, but
studio.
that's a show.
I get that. I understand that. I'm simply saying, and I don't have Peacock, so I don't know. So what I was saying was, that's why I asked if you had it, because I didn't know if
Well,
they could show all the stuff
we
that I
did
want to
have it
see.
for a little bit, I'm sure. I don't know if we kept it or not because we went through this whole like I'm not using it, I'm gonna not pay for it thing,
Okay.
and we kind of booted a lot of channels. So, but from what I remember, I think the show that we watched was definitely along those lines.
Okay. Well, I mean, I didn't know if
Have
again
you
I was
have you watched Resident Alien yet?
no because it's not on Hulu.
No, but it's on Sci-Fi, right?
Yeah, but I don't get sci-fi.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I don't.
I
I
didn't
don't think.
watch it on Sci-Fi,
Oh well.
so it's got to be on another service. I bet you can find it like on
Actually, I think it might be on
Amazon.
Peacock.
Okay.
It's another reason why, like, I'm like, I've never. I mean, Peacock is free to download and whatever. I could do it. I just never have, and part of me is just, I want to make sure it's worth the memory on my TV. So
How much do you watch the TV? You know, like you're gonna have to figure that out for yourself because obviously, like it's gonna be a matter of opinion no matter what.
yeah, I know.
But I didn't really use it, so like I watched a couple of things on it. I think that we got it because we had to watch. We had to have it to watch something,
Yeah.
and it might even have been Resident Alien, but it we didn't keep it because we didn't feel like it was we didn't use it that much. Like almost anything that we watched on there, we could watch elsewhere. And Resident Alien, I think when we got it, we were expecting Resident Alien season 3, and or maybe it was season 4, and it just never came. The excuse was COVID and all this other stuff, which I never got. Why you already filmed something, but yet COVID's holding it up from you
Uh huh.
releasing it. That's kind of doesn't make sense to me. It sounds like it's something agenda driven.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I may have to just download it and see how I feel about it, and if I don't like it, get rid of it. I suppose.
Yeah.
No harm, no foul.
Is it? It's a free download, right?
What?
It's free, right?
Yeah.
Well, you ain't gonna lose
Other than the
anything for
cost
doing it.
of, well, I mean, there's memory involved.
Yeah, only for a little bit. I mean, if you don't like it,
Right. Exactly.
you'll know pretty quick, I'm sure, if you like it or not, right?
Yeah. I always thought it was funny because I remember when I signed up for Hulu, my wife was kind of pissed at me. She did not like that decision because it's just more money going out and for TV and whatever. And I'm like, okay, but they have all of the seasons of ER, and then she's like, oh, really? And I'm like, yeah, you can watch the whole thing. And I remember, I think it was like one spring break. She got up in the
Then
morning. She would turn on ER, and it would run all day, and it ran all week, and it still wasn't over. I was like, dang. So,
I
whatever.
don't know, I don't remember what it was on, but I've been binge watched all of Nash, the TV show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I realized some stuff that I didn't realize prior to watching it.
Okay.
It was hugely political.
Yeah. Although
I,
I was too
I,
young
I
to
didn't
notice that.
realize it as a kid when I watched it because, actually, even honestly, as a kid, I was like, do I have to, but
So, you know the movie Stripes?
well, yeah.
I've always thought if you could make a movie like Stripes, but it would be about the Great Emu War, it would
The
be
great what?
Emu War.
Emu?
Yeah, have you never heard of the Great Emu War?
No.
Oh my gosh. I am not making this up. This is 100% real. Okay. Which is why the whole thing makes it even better. And I don't want to get too in the weeds on it because I'm sure I'll mess up some of the historical accuracy. But I believe it was like right after World War II. And it's in Australia. And they were having a problem with emus, the birds. They were just too many of them. They were destroying crops and all this stuff, right? So they hired a bunch of ex World War II vets to go out and just, do some population control on the emu. And apparently they lost. The Australians lost. The, the emus got worse. It was great. And I just think that whole concept is begging for a script like that. Like that would just be, get the right comedians, perfect. And when I saw Stripes, I was like, oh God, if they could do this but be about the Emu War, it would be it would just be wonderful. So it's just what it's one of our running gags at work. We always talk about our movie script about the Emu War. So but yeah, it's one of the most fascinating things in history, I think. That you have these people with machine guns losing to emu. So
Did they use machine guns?
I believe so. They were getting rid of ordnance.
Because Australia's pretty gun control
Well, it is now,
oriented too.
but at the time they weren't. So,
I don't know. That's why I
well,
asked.
right
What
after
do
World War
you do
II.
when you don't know something?
But yeah, I just think it would be. I mean, it just sounds hilarious. The whole thing is hilarious. So, if I thought I could do a good enough script, I'd write it. But I don't think I'm that funny.
Well, it doesn't matter how funny the script is if you can't find the people that deliver it right.
Yeah, that's true too.
Because more than half of the joke is in the delivery.
That is very true. Ugh.
I was going to do this part that I'm doing right now with the soft leaded pencil.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I figured I could, spray, or not spray, I could do the matte medium over it and protect
Okay.
it. But I'm just so used to drawing with this pencil for the light stuff and then just going over it and over it and over it that's what he did. Sucks I drew this just a little bit too big, but I wanted her big enough to take up the whole page.
Yeah.
And basically, she does take up well, her and what she's stepping on takes up the whole page. But I really love the axe that's in the reference photo. And I don't think I'm going to be able to actually do it on this page. Might be able to get enough of the information in to do it on a copy, which is my full intention, is to draw this out and then copy it and enlarge it.
Okay.
So it's drawn out by me. It's all original me, but it's just the size is manipulated by copier.
Right.
That's for, I know you know, it's just for anyone that stumbles upon this channel accidentally. And they stumble through almost 3 hours of art bullshit.
Oh.
Okay, so that's not going to happen. So come to the conclusion that you're going to give it a shot, or
No. I mean, maybe someday, but not right now, because, I mean, there's just, we got other things to work on. I got too many things to work on. Which is not a problem. I am not complaining. Dear Lord, I am not complaining, in case you're listening. I would much rather have too many things to work on than be sitting around going, oh, what should I work on? You know, I would much rather have too many ideas than be out of ideas.
okay, I was talking about the NBC thing.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about the script. Oh, yeah, I think I might.
Well, you know that I could help you with it a little bit. Like I don't know if I'm funny or whatever, but I could help you set it up. And you know how to plot. There's two different kinds of comedy, right? Situational.
Right. No,
And that's what you're talking about, right? You want to have situational or.
Well, there's a lot more. I mean, if you watch Stripes, there's a lot more than situational comedy. I mean, it's like.
Well, yeah, because you had Bill Murray, and he's going to fuck around on the set, and
Harold Ramis.
Harold Ramis. If you find that he's behind a lot of these movies.
Oh, I know, but he was hilarious, and it's really those two characters and their interplay that works so well. I mean, Stripes is not, in my opinion, on paper, all that great of a film, and that's another reason why I wouldn't necessarily want to do the script, because you got to have two people who can carry it, I would think, and you know, like Harold Ramis and Bill Murray could have, but not anymore unless we're going to commune with the dead. So,
well, so
what?
I think the bigger problem isn't that you can't find anyone that would carry it. The bigger problem is that you can't find anyone that would produce it unless it was espousing certain values.
Well, that's possibly true too.
And like you can't just. I don't think you can just write something that's funny anymore because everything offends somebody.
Well, that's like so you've seen Ghostbusters, right?
Yeah, Harold Ramis wrote that.
Yeah. Who was the villain in that film?
Which villain?
Well, okay. Name me a villain from that film.
Name you a villain?
Yeah, because there's only
Uh,
really
Zool.
that's one.
Um, the mayor. Um,
See, I don't think the mayor's a villain, but the
the dude
EPA
that
is.
yeah he was a little bit. And all right, so antagonist instead of villain.
Well, the EPA
Um,
was flat out the real villain of
the
that film.
what's that?
The EPA was the real villain of that whole film.
Yeah,
And
the redheaded dude,
yeah,
the dude that usually plays a villain or a dick. He played that in
yeah, from the EPA, which I have
uh,
always been amazed.
Real
They made
Genius.
the, I just think that making the EPA the villain is such an amazing move. Like, yeah, I don't think you could do that anymore. Like, oh no, you can't let the EPA be the villain. They're trying to save the planet. It's like,
Hmm.
no, they're trying to control people and they're trying to, do other things. But whatever. So, I mean, it's just one of those things that, as an adult, especially when I realized the EPA was the real bad guy of the whole film, I just had mad respect for Harold Ramis because I thought, wow, you could not do that today.
Hmm. I don't. I don't think he posed it as the EPA in just the EPA. It was just that one guy.
Well, okay,
I
but
didn't. I
still,
didn't get the feeling the whole organization was evil. I got the feeling that that one guy was abusing his power.
and maybe that's the secret to letting the EPA be the villain. But I just I've just always thought that was hilarious. I just and ballsy and I just love it. So, you know, for my emu movie, I would love to have some kind of, I guess
WHO.
what?
WHO.
Well, except I don't know if they existed back then.
World Health Organization.
Yeah.
I don't know what dates did that take place because just
Well,
because they used World War II vets doesn't mean that it was like right after World War II.
except okay, so February 1964. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I mean,
That
I'll
was
just
during Vietnam, right? Or just about Vietnam.
yeah. That was before World War II. See, I wasn't sure about that. It was
What?
1932. So they used World War One vets,
Okay.
but that's still 32 years before the Who. The things we learn.
Well, that's research for you.
Yeah.
And that's why we can go down rabbit holes so easy.
The rabbit holes I go down. I always think NSA must be having a blast looking at what I'm doing. When you're having to look up weapons and how they work and how you get them, or like different poisons and all this stuff, all the stuff you need to know as a
Well,
writer.
yeah, but on the other hand, too, I understand what you're saying, and I have that worry too. Actually, I have the Poisoner's Handbook and a whole bunch of reference items like that. But also, too, when they're looking up your search history or whatever, they can also see that you're searching for books on writing or websites on writing, or you visit websites on writing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, I
So
know. I don't
there's
get too
there's
worried about it.
that. Well, it's kind of a running joke, right? Where if anyone ever looked at what my search bar is, but yeah, like you forget all the things on your search bar, all the things in your history. Not just you, like I'm saying you as in plural or whatever you want to.
Yeah, I get it.
Can you tell it's an axe now?
Yes, I can tell it's an X now. Oh.
I just had to ask you that question.
You had to ask me that?
Yeah, I had to ask it.
Thanks.
Somebody
Thanks
had to ask it.
Yep, had to ask it.
Somebody had to use that lame joke. That's my job.
There you go.
I want to have an important part in the show.
I thought it was fun. I forget what I was talking about exactly, but at lunch during this week, I mentioned the fact that we were arguing. We weren't arguing. We were discussing
We
essays.
weren't arguing. We were discussing.
Yeah.
That sounds
Proper,
like tattoo artists don't mess up. They find better ways.
Well, like in high school, they tend to pretend like there's some like structure that's supposed to be used for essays, and there's not. There's simply there are lots of structures,
Huh.
and
I always heard that there was a structure for an essay.
Well, they talk about 5-paragraph essays, and they talk about how your introduction should start with a hook, and then it should end with your thesis statement, and then your thesis statement should be restated or reworded as the first line of your conclusion. I mean,
yeah, see, that's what I heard was the end is the conclusion. Duh.
Well, so whatever.
Duh to me, not you.
I just know that in the real world, that's complete BS. It makes it easy for the grader to go through and see where do you have a thesis? Yeah, it's right there.
Yeah, okay. skip most of it and just say, yeah.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't do that, but I understand what it does for a grader. And we were kind of discussing it, and I mentioned the fact that because one of the guys, the new guy that taught a little bit longer than I have, he's like, yeah, I'd rather they just start off with their thesis, like right off, because they can't write hooks to save their lives. And I mentioned the fact that my favorite book on writing essays pretty much says the same thing, that he thinks you should just jump right in and say what you're writing about. And one of the social study teachers was just like, oh my God, you have a favorite? Not only do you have a book, but you have a favorite book on writing essays? And I'm like, well, yeah. I'm a writer. I like to look up stuff about writing. So,
yeah,
but whatever.
Like I wouldn't say I had a favorite book about writing essays, but it's not a skill I really employ.
Well, as an English teacher, though,
that's not the type of writing I do. No, I get it. I'm not attacking what you're saying. But I was going to add that, like, while I don't have a favorite book on writing essays, I have a favorite book on plotting.
Yeah, I mean,
I have a favorite book on point of view.
Yeah, characters and viewpoint is fantastic.
Yep,
That one is
characters and viewpoint. Orson Scott Card's. I don't know about the new one. I didn't read that one.
Oh, I didn't know there was a new one.
I'm sure Nancy Kress did an awesome job, but it's one of those things. If it ain't broke, don't need you fixing it.
Yeah.
And they just did that because it was Orson Scott Card that wrote the original one.
Yeah, they've been wanting to cancel him.
I recommend people read How to Write Fantasy and Science Fiction and Fantasy by Orson Scott Card too, all the time.
I have that one somewhere.
Because it really introduces the mice quotient.
Yeah.
And I love the mice quotient. It is wonderful if used properly. I've seen a certain somebody who once was a pupil of Orson Scott Card that became a leader of a certain writers organization and disavowed the same person who taught that person everything that person knows. Boy, this is hard without the use of pronouns.
Yeah.
But if I use pronouns, everyone's going to know who I'm talking about.
You should put that in the private chat, though, so I know who you're talking about.
You don't?
I don't.
Okay.
Oh, I know that. Not
Oh,
a
yeah.
clue.
Oh, yeah. So that person blogged about what the Mike's quotient was. But only if you read her blog, two of the letters stand for the same thing, just phrased differently.
Oh.
And it totally destroys the value of the mice quotient. So I guess I'm going to leave this here because we've been at it 3 hours.
Okay.
While it is Saturday, you probably want some time. And, you know, we could talk without having an audience, which we don't anyway. Or we may, because a lot of people watch and it doesn't register.
Mm.
I will see. It says 2 people upliked it, 3 people saw it, and our peak concurrent viewers was 1. Nope, that's a different video.
That's probably Mark.
No, that's a different video.
Oh, okay.
That's last week's. Oh, there is something interesting though.
What?
The numbers are up by 2. All right, so I'm going to end this stream. So can you see that clearly?
Yeah. You got the axe?
I asked last time, and well, not the axe, like the whole composition.
Yeah, I can.
The last time I asked, and that was with a Lagoda.
Right.
People were saying, "Oh, I can't see it very well," and so like I want to make sure everybody can see it.
Well, again, I mean, I saw the ape, and I think it was lighter than this, but you know, I still can still see the shading on it. So I don't know it was better after you inked it, but
right. Well, this will be better after I ink it too.
Well, that's what I figure. I mean, I don't worry about it. I mean, I think
when I go through it with this,
yeah,
and actually darken it, darken the spots that are supposed to be darker, and then use this for the spots that are supposed to be lighter. And then I go and make a copy of it. I can darken that copy and see what I'm saying.
Oh.
When I actually apply it to the canvas, it will have quite a bit different look.
Well, I mean, I can see the shading. Like I can see her ribs. There's a dark spot. Looks like a nipple.
It's not. Nope. It's not. You're talking about right here or right here?
Yeah, on the left.
This side?
No, other
her
side.
Her left or our left?
This our one? Left. Yeah.
Nope. That's just a lump where the.
Okay, but I'm just saying you can see that.
That's where the Terminator line is. So
I can see her navel. This. I can see her thigh muscles around the knee. You know, it looks like a light skull at the bottom.
Yep.
So which you did not discuss with me, so I'm obviously seeing it. I don't know how anyone would not be able to see it. So.
Right. Well, somebody mentioned it to me before that they couldn't. So, I just want to make sure.
All right. Well,
now that you mentioned it, then maybe if they get this far,
right,
they'll hear it. So I'm going to end it. We can talk for a minute afterwards.
All right.
Thank you for anyone that showed. hit like. Thank you for the new subscribers. If you're interested in anything that's said or want to get involved, feel free to hit like, subscribe. Good night. God bless. We love you all.
Peace.